Have you ever been told that you expect too much? That your standards are unrealistic? That nobody could possibly give you everything you want? Maybe, after hearing it enough times, you started believing it. You apologize for needing reassurance. You apologize for wanting honesty. You apologize for asking for consistency. Eventually, you apologized for simply being human. But here's the question almost nobody asks. What if you never asked for too much? What if you were simply asking the wrong people? There's a difference, a huge difference, because healthy people rarely make basic respect feel expensive. Emotionally available people don't act like kindness as a burden. People who genuinely care about you don't see your needs as an attack. Yet somehow, many people spend years believing they are too much, not because they are, but because someone incapable of loving them convinced them they were. Imagine asking someone for water while standing in the middle of a desert. Eventually, you don't conclude that water isn't necessary. You conclude you're asking the wrong place. Relationships work the same way. If someone has no emotional availability, every emotional need feels excessive. If someone cannot communicate, every conversation feels like an argument. If someone cannot offer consistency, every request for stability feels controlling. Nothing changed about your needs, only the person receiving them. The tragedy is that people often adapt instead of leaving. They ask for less, then even less, until eventually they stop asking altogether. Not because they stop needing, because they stop believing anyone would care. And that's where people begin disappearing. Not physically, psychologically. Little by little, they become smaller, quieter, easier, more convenient. They laugh at things that hurt. They forgive things that shouldn't have happened. They explain away disrespect. They call neglect understanding. They call inconsistency being patient. They call emotional starvation being mature. Without realizing, they're slowly abandoning themselves. The saddest part is how normal it starts to feel. One ignored message, one broken promise, one cancelled plan, one conversation where your feelings somehow became your fault. None of them seemed big enough, but together, they slowly teach you something dangerous. They teach you that asking for love is asking for too much. And one day, someone enters your life and simply listens. They keep their word. They answer honestly. They show up when they said they would. Suddenly, it feels extraordinary. Not because they're extraordinary, because you've forgotten what normal feels like. You mistake basic respect for something rare. It isn't. It's supposed to be ordinary. That's why emotionally healthy relationships often feel strangely boring at first. There's no guessing, no chasing, no emotional roller coaster, no constant fear of losing someone, just peace. And if you've spent years surviving chaos, peace feels unfamiliar, sometimes even uncomfortable, because your nervous system learned to confuse uncertainty with love. You mistake anxiety for chemistry. You mistake inconsistency for excitement. You mistake emotional distance for mystery. But none of those things are love. They're instability. And instability has convinced millions of people that they're asking for too much. They weren't. They were simply asking someone who had nothing to give. Some people cannot give honesty because they lie to themselves. Some cannot give consistency because they never learned commitment. Some cannot give emotional safety because they never found it within themselves. Their limitation was never your identity. Yet people confuse the two every day. Someone refuses to communicate. You think, I communicate too much. Someone avoids accountability. You think, I expect too much. Someone cannot love you consistently. You think, I'm difficult to love. That's how self-doubt is born. Not from truth, but from repeated exposure to people incapable of meeting you where you are. One day, you finally leave, and something strange happens. The next person doesn't complain that you're too much, because to emotionally healthy people, honesty isn't overwhelming. Boundaries aren't offensive. Communication isn't exhausting. Respect isn't negotiable. And suddenly, you realize something. You were never difficult. You were simply asking someone who benefited from giving you less than you deserved. Sometimes, the biggest life change isn't lowering your expectations. It's changing who you expect them from. Because the right people won't make kindness feel expensive. They won't make honesty feel dramatic. They won't make consistency feel impossible. They won't make you feel guilty for having needs. If this message stayed with you, consider subscribing to Raw Mind. There are conversations here that don't promise comfort, only clarity. And if you're ready to explore these ideas beyond these videos, the complete Raw Mind digital collection is waiting through the link in the description. Sometimes, understanding yourself changes everything, long before your life does. There's another reason people believe they're asking for too much. Comparison. You watch other people settle. You hear them say, nobody's perfect. You have to lower your expectations. Every relationship is hard. And slowly, you start wondering if maybe they're right. But lowering unrealistic expectations and lowering healthy standards are not the same thing. Expecting someone to read your mind is unrealistic. Expecting honesty isn't. Expecting perfection is unrealistic. Expecting respect isn't. Expecting someone to never make mistakes is impossible. Expecting them to take responsibility for those mistakes isn't. The difference matters, because many people spend years sacrificing healthy standards, while convincing themselves they're becoming more mature. They're not becoming mature. They're becoming accustomed to disappointment. Eventually, they don't even recognize what healthy love looks like anymore. Not because they've never seen it, because they've spent too long surviving without it. And survival changes your expectations. It teaches you to celebrate crumbs, to call inconsistency effort, to call emotional distance independence, to call neglect bad timing, until one day, you realize you've spent years negotiating against yourself. Not because you were weak, because you wanted the relationship to work. There's nothing wrong with wanting things to work, but there is something dangerous about making yourself smaller just to make someone else more comfortable. Real love doesn't require you to disappear. Real friendship doesn't require constant self-abandonment. Real respect doesn't ask you to betray yourself just to keep someone around. Sometimes, Walking away isn't giving up. It's finally refusing to negotiate your own worth. Some people spend years trying to become easier to love, easier to understand, easier to keep around. They become less honest, less expressive, less emotional. Not because that's who they are, but because they believe that's the price of being accepted. The problem is that every time you abandon a part of yourself to keep someone else comfortable, the relationship becomes less real, because they aren't loving you anymore. They're loving the version you edited for them. And the more successful you become at pretending, the lonelier you often feel. People compliment you. People appreciate you. People say they enjoy being around you. But inside, you quietly wonder, if they knew who I really was, would they still stay? That's the hidden cost of abandoning yourself. You never actually find out who would have loved the real you, because the real you never got the chance to exist. Maybe that's why losing certain people hurts so much. Not because they left, because you sacrificed parts of yourself, and they left anyway. You became quieter, kinder, more patient, more understanding. You ignored your instincts. You ignored your exhaustion. You ignored your own needs. And despite all of that, they still walked away. That realization can break people. Or it can finally set them free. Because once you understand that self-abandonment never guaranteed love, you stop treating it like an investment. You stop asking, what else can I change about myself? And you start asking, what kind of relationship requires me to disappear in the first place? That's a much better question. Healthy relationships don't ask you to erase yourself. Healthy friendships don't require constant emotional negotiations. Healthy people don't become uncomfortable simply because you started respecting yourself. Sometimes people accuse you of changing. They're right. You did change. You stopped accepting what you once tolerated. You stopped apologizing for having boundaries. You stopped calling bare minimum effort love. The people who benefited from your silence will almost always notice your voice first. Not because you've become difficult, because you've become unavailable to the version of life that kept hurting you. And that can feel lonely for a while, because growth often creates distance before it creates connection. You may lose people, old dynamics, old identities, even old dreams. But losing what required you to abandon yourself isn't really a loss. It's space. Space for relationships where honesty doesn't feel dangerous, where boundaries aren't punished, where kindness goes both ways, where you don't have to earn basic respect every single day. That's the kind of peace most people mistake for boredom until they finally experience it. And once they do, they never want to go back. Because the moment you stop asking, what do I need to become so they'll stay? You finally begin asking, why am I trying so hard to keep someone who doesn't want to meet me halfway? That question changes everything. Not overnight, but permanently. Because once you see the difference, you can't unsee it. You stop confusing loneliness with peace. You stop confusing attention with love. And most importantly, you stop confusing self-abandonment with compromise. Maybe you never asked for too much. Maybe you simply forgot that healthy relationships don't make basic human needs feel unreasonable. If this conversation gave words to something you've been carrying for a long time, subscribe to Raw Mind. There are no shortcuts here. No fake motivation. Just quiet truths that stay with you long after the video ends. And if you're ready to go even deeper, you'll find the complete Raw Mind digital collection through the link in the description. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.